Hello everyone, this is Joshua Cook back here on my YouTube channel, and this is going to be another read-along book and record video, and this one is from Kid Stuff. This came out in 1986, and it features the Popples in The Piano That Wouldn't Play. So you'll be seeing the story and hearing the record in the background. Let me adjust the volume real quick. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this. Here's the Popples and their story, The Piano That Wouldn't Play.
Hi there, it's me, PC, Pretty Cool Popples, that is. I bring you greetings and salutations from all your Popple pals. Welcome to your Popples read-along book. Every time you hear this sound, it means that it's time to turn the page in your storybook. Now, if you are ready, we will begin The Popples and the Piano That Wouldn't Play. Don't forget to turn the page every time you hear the sound.
All the Popples love people, and in some special way, they can always sniff out when a person is going to have a problem. Their talented noses lead them right to the trouble. That's the reason they get into so many perfectly perplexing predicaments with the people around them. Petey Piper is a perfect example of one of those people. Petey had an Aunt Penelope who lived in a fussy old house filled with fancy old furniture. Aunt Penelope kept plenty of pussycats in her house and lots of pots of purple pansies on her windowsill because she was partial to plants. Aunt Penelope sometimes behaved in strange ways, and this puzzled Petey. Aunt Penelope liked to drink hot milk and cold tea. This puzzled Petey because he liked cold milk and hot tea. Aunt Penelope was always saying children should be quiet, but if Petey didn't speak up, she'd feel his head for fever or ask,
"Has the cat got your tongue?"
Aunt Penelope had a dining room in her house, but Petey didn't know why. No one ever dined there. In one corner of the dining room stood a cabinet for curios and china. No one was allowed to touch them. And in Aunt Penelope's parlor stood an old polished piano. No one was allowed to play it. Aunt Penelope loved her piano even more than she loved her pussycats or pots of purple pansies. She pampered it in every way possible. She polished the fine carvings in its frame and on its legs until they glowed. She kept the keys spotlessly clean and made sure that the stool always stood straight. On the days that Petey and his parents came to call on Aunt Penelope, Petey wasn't particularly pleasant. There was no place to play and nothing to do in Aunt Penelope's parlor except sit still and pretend to be polite. And that was no fun at all. Petey always thought how much fun it would be to plop down on the piano stool and bang away on the piano keys. Sometimes when Petey was feeling particularly provoked, he'd pinch the pussycats and make them howl. Or when no one was looking, he'd push into the piano as he passed it. Now the Popples knew all about Aunt Penelope's piano, and they knew that Petey was about to have a problem because of it. Pancake Popple told her pals,
"There's a problem, Poppins. I feel it from the top of my fluffy head to the tip of my puffed tail. Petey Piper is going to need our help." "What makes you say that?"
asked Party Popple, who was busily preparing popcorn for her next party.
"I can smell it in the air.
Explained Pancake with a worried look on her face.
And you know my nose is never wrong."
PC Popple offered to help.
if it will make you feel better, we will just pop over to Aunt Penelope's and hide behind her pots of purple pansies. That way, we can keep an eye on Petey and the piano and pop up if the problem presents itself.
The Popples all agreed and hurried off to Aunt Penelope's house. As soon as they reached Aunt Penelope's windowsill, the Popples popped into their pouches and hid behind the pots of purple pansies. Just then, Aunt Penelope and Petey both came into the parlor.
Petey, I'm going to give you my piano.
Explained Aunt Penelope, who had no children of her own and who really loved Petey very much.
I want you to learn how to play it, and I've hired Professor Piffle to teach you. But you must be sure to polish the piano perfectly and practice your lessons on it every day.
Phooey, muttered Petey under his breath. Who wants to polish and practice? Then, while Aunt Penelope's back was turned, Petey kicked the piano leg so hard that the lid flipped over the keys with a loud bang, and 2 pots of purple pansies toppled to the floor.
My goodness!
Exclaimed Aunt Penelope in amazement.
I don't know why that happened.
But Petey knew why. He knew the piano was going to present a problem, and he muttered to himself again. Who needs that dumb piano? I like things the way they are. I don't want any changes. I don't want to take piano lessons. I don't want to practice. And I don't want the piano moved to my house. Petey had never felt so angry. On the windowsill, Pretty Bit Popple nervously twisted her tail and cried to the other Popples.
Do something!
Repeated Potato Chip Popple, nervously nibbling on everything in sight. PC tried to calm his pals.
Stay cool, everyone. We just have to wait and see what develops.
A little while later, Petey watched as the moving men arrived to move the piano to his house. The men were very polite, very patient, and very strong. But the piano was very big, and very heavy, and very hard to move. They just couldn't budge it away from the dining room wall. This pleased Petey, and he smiled. Soon the moving men stopped being polite. They pushed and pulled, but the piano wouldn't budge. Petey's smile widened, and he thought to himself, now I won't have to take lessons or practice or polish that silly old piano. Then the moving men stopped being patient. They heaved and they huffed. They wheezed and they puffed. They grumbled and they groaned. Still, they couldn't budge the piano. Meanwhile, behind the pots of purple pansies, the Popples watched and worried.
I can't stand this.
Cried Pancake, who could never bear to see anyone upset or unhappy.
Neither can I.
Agreed Puzzle.
This is no fun.
Added Prize.
No fun. No fun.
Repeated Putter and Pretty Bit and Potato Chip.
We Popples are just not helping at all.
Announced Party Popple.
It's plain to see that those moving men can use a big helping of Popple power.
You're right again, Party.
Said PC, snapping his fingers.
But I also think Petey is going to need some Popple power too. Let's pop on down.
With that, the Popples hopped out from behind the pansy pots and jumped down onto the floor. As they popped out of their pouches near the pampered piano, big smiles popped out on the faces of the moving men. After all, no one can keep from smiling when a Popple is near. And a hard job is always much easier to do with a smile on your face. So the smiling moving men and the Popples pushed again. This time, the piano moved away from the wall and skidded easily across the floor and through the doorway. With the Popples' help, the moving men lifted the piano into the van and prepared for the trip to Petey's house. Petey's smile had changed into a frown as the piano was being loaded into the van.
Thanks, pals!
Called the moving men as they started to close the doors.
Don't mention it.
Said PC. Then, seeing Petey get on his bicycle to follow the van, PC added to the movers.
Say, if you fellas don't mind, we'd like to come along for the ride. Just in case more problems pop up.
Sure, hop in,
replied the moving men. And the problem certainly did pop up. Even when the piano was in its proper place in Petey's parlor, things didn't improve. Petey was peeved because he had to give up playing baseball with his pals one afternoon a week in order to take piano lessons. Petey was peeved because he had to miss his favorite TV show because he had to practice. And when it came to polishing the piano, well, Petey was so peeved that he didn't do that at all. Petey certainly had problems. He couldn't make his fingers hit the right keys. His toes missed the pedals. He got his buttons caught against the piano's carvings and got his trousers tangled around the stool. Since Petey didn't bother much about pampering the piano, its fine carvings grew dusty. The keys grew dirty and dull. Finally, Petey gave up and stopped practicing altogether. Professor Piffle, Petey's piano teacher, scolded him.
Petey, you are neglecting the piano. How can I teach you to play when you do not practice properly?
Then the professor packed his metronome and left. Petey was very depressed. His mother and father were disappointed, and Aunt Penelope was so perturbed that she forgot to water her pots of purple pansies. Seeing all this, PC Popple told his pals,
If ever people needed Popples, Petey and his folks do. Come on, let's get the giggles going.
Prize Popple was the first to get into the spirit of things. She stopped primping, put her mirror into her pouch, and said,
I'll do my best bit.
When she was sure that Petey and his parents and Aunt Penelope were paying attention, she started one of her super silly stories.
A funny thing happened on the way to Petey's parlor.
Puffball followed Prize's story by throwing her voice and making it look as if Potato Chip was talking with her mouth full. Next, Puzzle showed off all his funniest faces. Then Pancake pranced around, tickling everyone with her tail, while Party passed the popcorn and Pretty Bit giggled. And Putter played practical jokes. It was like a three-ring circus. But none of the Popples' tricks worked. Petey was still depressed. His parents were still disappointed, and Aunt Penelope was still perturbed.
Hold it.
Said PC, who wasn't used to people staying unhappy when Popples were around.
Are we doing something wrong?
Puzzle always seemed to know the answer to any tough question and the solution to any strange problem. It's the piano, he announced.
The piano!
Repeated the Popples. Puzzle nodded.
All you have to do is look at the piano and you'll be able to figure out Petey's problem.
The Popples all looked hard. What they saw was a poor old piano standing all alone in Petey's parlor. They noticed how neglected the piano was. Its fine carvings were dusty and drab. Its keys were dirty and dull. Yes, the piano seemed sadly neglected, and Petey didn't seem to care at all.
I've got it.
Exclaimed Prize, who was so concerned about Petey's problem that she forgot to primp.
Petey doesn't like playing the piano, and in order to do something properly, you have to like what you're doing. Goodbye!
Said Party.
That's probably why Petey's so unhappy, too.
Maybe if Petey felt proud of the piano, everything else would work out.
Suggested PC.
How can I make Petey feel proud?
asked Potato Chip, nervously munching on everything in sight.
That's the problem. No problem at all.
Said Pancake, who was always willing to go flat out to make someone happy. Pancake began polishing the piano with the puffy part of her tail. Pretty soon, all the other Popples joined in, polishing the piano along with her. The Popples smiled and sang as they polished. They made polishing look like such fun, even Petey picked up a cloth and pitched in. In no time flat, the carvings glowed and the keys sparkled. Soon the old piano looked every bit as pampered as it had looked in Aunt Penelope's parlor. It also looked ready to be played. Petey was so pleased with the job he and the Popples had done that he sat down at the piano and picked out the notes of a tune. Because Petey wanted to play, and because he now cared about the piano, he played the tune perfectly. Then Petey played another tune, and another, and another. When he ran out of tunes, he played his scales. When he ran out of scales, he played his chords. When he ran out of chords, he started at the beginning and played everything all over again. By the time he was through, Petey loved playing the piano even more than playing baseball or watching TV. In fact, he grew to love the piano more than anything in the world. Petey's parents were proud. Professor Pipple was properly pleased. And Aunt Penelope was so excited that she drank her tea hot.
I think this calls for a celebration.
Said Party Popple, who had piles of popcorn prepared.
Pretty cool.
Said PC, speaking for all the Popples.
That's what I call a perfect ending.
Alright, that was the Popples in the piano that wouldn't play. So I thought it was a really nice story, and I've always enjoyed the Popples. I used to have one of their VHS tapes, but I don't think I have it anymore. But this was a really good story, so let me know in the comments what you thought of this particular story. So thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. And be sure and like, comment, and subscribe here on my YouTube channel, Joshua Cooks HRNR, YouTube's new alternative. And be sure and follow me on my variety channel on Dailymotion, because Dailymotion needs the views just as much as YouTube does. So I will do another one of these read-along records and stories, read-along story and record videos. I'll do another one of them at some point, so be sure and subscribe and ring the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I have a new video uploaded. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in my next video. This is Joshua Cook signing off, and I am out.